So I'm about this far into my weaving, and as you can see, there's quite a few problems. So obviously my tension is wacky. There's this little mistake over here that I mentioned previously, and it's wacky here. And obviously my plan for the selvage is not going to plan. So like I could keep going on it, but like there's a loose thread there. I don't even know what that is. It's a loose thread there. There's also a thread over here that like just is not going, and not helping matters, of course, is I'm not really, you can kind of see in there, I'm not getting a super clean shed. It's not too bad in here, but in here we can see there's definitely some funkiness going on. I could push on, but I'm thinking maybe it's time to not give up, but restart. So I think half my problem is I didn't wind the leash stick on far enough. I feel like that would have solved a lot of my tension problems. That's looking really dodgy there. I don't even know what's going on in that section. So I feel like what I want to do is I'm going to cut this off and rethread it. So my first job is going to be picking through and working out where these looser pieces are. So like this here. And I'm just going to add a little bit of washi tape to them. There's a couple of threads in this section as well that are overlapping, and I think they're actually on the wrong side on the reed. So you can see that tension isn't great. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to mark these threads that need extra attention, and then I'm going to go through and check that the reed is threaded properly. I'm going to cut off each color, and I'm just going to work in 1/2 inch sections. So I'm going to cut 1/2 inch, check that it's coming through the reed properly, and then tie it so then I can retie to the leash stick. And so I'll cut across here, get rid of this. I might even just keep this section as a learning experience, or overlock a section and put in a journal or something. So that's my plan. I'm just going to pick away at it today. That is just going to drive me crazy. I also feel like I need to do something with this selvage. So I need to either work out how to make a selvage with this pattern here, or I need to give up the idea of a nice clean selvage and just rethread it in the pattern, because that clearly is not working for anyone. And then I can restart. I can get the tension right. Like that. That's crazy, and I'm definitely not going to be happy with that. So I'm going to pop one of my podcasts on for you to listen to, all about learning a new hobby, because this is only my second ever weave. So there's a really steep learning curve obviously going on in here. And so I'm going to take it as a learning experience, start again, and I'll pop a podcast on for you guys to listen to and join me as I pick away and start working on this.
Hi, I'm Rach.
And I'm Car. Welcome to the Ministry of Crafty Shenanigans,
a weekly podcast on creativity, connection, collaboration, and community. Welcome to episode 7. We've had so much fun so far. We've talked about so many really cool things. And last week, we talked about our creative partnership and leading each other astray a bit. And one of our favorite ways that we leverage our creative partnership is trying new things. It doesn't take much of an Instagram scroll or a Pinterest scroll, and one of us is messaging the other saying, hey, we need to try this, like now.
I think each month we get maybe 4 potential projects sent to each other going, hey, we should do this. How many actually last though? That's the big question.
Well, for one, I would say that it would be more than 4. 4 might be a daily number of tags on a particularly scroll-worthy day. Yeah, not a lot of them come off, do they? Though in saying that, some of them kind of just float in the background, and then a few months later we'll be like, hey, what was that thing you tagged me in? Because I want to do it now. And it just kind of, yeah, so sometimes it just brews away in the background, doesn't it?
It does. And sometimes if they're an idea that it's got a glimmer in it, we tend to go back to it.
I think definitely some of those ideas just have just a little something that we can grab onto that may not necessarily apply straight away, but we'll come back to down the track. The one that I'm particularly thinking of at the minute, a couple of months ago, I tagged you in a reel about creating mixed media collage fodder on watercolor gum tape. And I tagged you in it, and we're both like, oh, that's really cool. And we both talked about how we were going to do it straight away, and neither of us did. But then last week I had my jelly plate out and I was doing some prints and stuff. And so I made sure when I was doing that, I got my gum tape out and made some really fun little bits to add to my pile for future projects.
Can you pass my journal? I need to write down gum tape because I haven't actually purchased that yet. I'm going to go and get some so that I can actually do that project because it sounded really fun.
Which journal would you like? Our potential projects journal, current projects journal, Rachel's grand ideas journal, things to buy journal?
It would be the journal that rules all the journals because that's the current one that I'm putting all the new ideas in. Yeah,
right,
that
the
one.
master journal.
The master journal. But that is one project that I did actually it sparkled. It's one of those, what do we say, shiny. Ooh, shiny.
Ooh, shiny.
It sparkled and we were like, okay, that's the one that we want to get to. So we're talking about shiny new projects. The big question today is there any craft that we haven't yet dabbled in?
Oh, good question.
Wasn't that a good question?
I will say one because I've just started following someone on Instagram that I found via Reels who makes amazing stained glass. And it's been on my to try list. But obviously it's really specialized, needs lots of specialist equipment to do. I can't just decide, this is what I'm going to do this weekend and do it. I found a class locally. Unfortunately, the timing of that didn't work. So I'm hoping to catch another one down the track to try. So that is one that I do want to do and haven't yet tried.
So I haven't tried a stained glass yet, but I have done lead lighting. And I did a course, I think about 20 odd years ago now, and I made a lamp, which I think Mum and Dad have still got the lamp. It started to come apart. It's a finicky little and expensive little hobby, but it was fun. So I think you'll have a great time doing that class.
I think you need to show me a photo of that lead lighted lamp. That sounds really fun.
Yes, I can show you a photo. If Mum and Dad have still got it, I think they're in the masses of cleaning out everything at the moment, but I gave it to them because it was falling apart. And it wasn't particularly, I didn't really love the colors because I did it when I was like 19 or 20 or something. But yeah, I gave it to Dad with the instructions that he actually had to fix it for me because he's actually a glazier.
Well, that would be cool. That would be cool. What about you? Is there a particular craft or creative outlet that you can think of that you want to try that you haven't?
Ooh, not really. I think I've done pretty much everything. Possibly macrame. I think at one point we were doing one of the challenges, and I can't think which one it was. Okay. The materials, the 26 materials challenge. That was a really, really good challenge because it gave us an option to work with, rope, glass, fabric, paper, everything, like an array of different ones, which if you want to see that, it's on the blogs and we will add it to the show notes. But the macrame is one that I've never actually done, and I've always wanted to do a macrame owl. Throwback to the 80s. I'm really going through the nostalgia at the moment.
Maybe I need to issue a challenge. You need to macrame this week.
To finish the 26 materials challenge that I never
2 years
finished.
ago.
But that 26 materials challenge, that was a really good one for us because it gave us a wide array of projects to try. And I know a lot of people will say to us, how much time do you have to devote to your craft, or how do you afford to do so many different types of crafts? But that particular challenge for me, I found just going to the cheap shop and actually getting, so if it was macrame, I'd go and get the rope from Kmart or the cheap shop, or if there was one that was stamp carving, or carving was one.
Yeah. Carving was one, or rubber. Yes. Rubber might have been one of the materials.
Rubber might have been one of the ones, one of the materials to use. And that, every time I go to Officeworks, I generally pick up a packet of 50-cent rubbers and I put them into a box in the craft room, and I just always have them there if I feel like doing a little tiny carving. It's there and it's affordable. So I've basically invested in the tools to do it because I didn't, for the entire project, I didn't want to spend too much money doing tools for every single craft, but I did invest in the carving tools because I do a lot of stamp carving.
The affordability is a big one, I think, because, some things we can say, oh, that's really cool, and just dive straight in. So the gum tape challenge that we were talking about, because, a roll of tape's maybe $10. It's a bit trickier for me because I don't have immediate access to art and crafts shops. So I've often got to factor in postage. And I think too, because both of us are multidisciplinary creatives, I think is the polite way of describing the hot mess that is our range of hobbies.
Not crazy crafters.
Not crazy crafters. You know, it's a thing that happens over years, is that you pick up, you know, a stamp carving tool here, and then 18 months later, you'll pick up a guillotine to cut paper with, and then 18 months later, you'll pick up a cricket, and like you slowly accumulate things. It's not like we're just going out and buying all the things. And when it comes to things like the stained glass class, obviously that's not something that we can just dive in because of that affordability factor.
But that's the point, that you decide to buy all the tools.
I've actually got a hashtag on Instagram, don't I, about all my tools called "Look AJ, more tools."
Yes.
I'm kind of known for collecting bits and pieces, and one of our other friends is always commenting on my tool collection, so that's always fun to tease her a little bit. You know, look, more tools.
So back before you and I actually knew each other, I had a lot of friends that were into card making and scrapbooking, which I dabbled a little bit in. I didn't particularly love it too much. And I sort of would go to the parties, but I really liked the creative side with the parties with the stamps. And I would buy, you buy the stamps and then you get the other set for free. So I would actually have a lot of tools before I came into our creative partnership. So generally speaking, if you say, hey, let's try this, chances are I've got a tool that will do the job. But I've also learned along the way, like if you do classes, and I take a lot of classes, they always have set lists for tools and set lists for creative supplies that you need, or art markers or whatever. And one thing that I've learned is don't go out and buy to the list. Watch the class first, see what you've actually got. And maybe you might need to buy, you know, a tub of glue because they suggest this is the best one to buy. But generally speaking, I can get by with what I've got in my craft room and utilizing the tools that I've already got on hand to make most things.
I think we're quite good at MacGyvering our existing stash, aren't we?
We are. My quilting rotary cutter is now a paper cutter, and I very rarely switch out the new blades, basically, if I'm cutting fabric, and keep that blade until it goes completely blunt and just use it for paper rather than a guillotine. I've looked at guillotines, but they're out of my price range. I've done paper cutters before. I don't like the way they cut. And the best thing for me is my really expensive Clover rotary blade. There you go. There's one for the listeners if they want a quick hack for paper. Don't recommend using the blade on fabric after you've used it on paper, though.
No, not so great. Not so great. And
yeah.
I guess we do over time, don't we? We learn what tools we really need, so we can kind of hack our way through, and then we kind of hit a point and go, yeah, actually now we need to invest in something else. It's really fun when we go to quilt camp and we kind of bring various bits along that the other doesn't necessarily have. So one year you brought your jelly plate because I didn't have a jelly plate at that point, and I think I brought my guillotine with me so that we could make and slice and do stuff together and share our tools in that way. Unfortunately, we can't do that aside from that one weekend a year.
No.
So classes. You mentioned a couple of minutes ago that you take a lot of classes. Is that your favorite way of learning new skills? Because you're very prolific in your class taking, and I'm prolific at signing up for classes and then forgetting about them.
I think so. Actually, it was something that I mentioned last week about when I created the blobs. I was doing a lot of classwork at that point. I like to take a variety of classes, but they give you hints and tips that you come from. So there was one, I think you and I took a mini petite journal course just recently with Alyssa B, and that was a really good one. I think I nearly finished that. I took a few more pages to finish, but I've filled this little book, and it's completely not exactly what hers look like, but she teaches it in such a way that you build layers upon layers upon layers, whereas a lot of people will teach, oh, this is what we're doing, and they'll do it, but then there's no way to get from point A to point Z, whereas this one is like a little building block one, which was really good. So it goes into the building of my skills, but it doesn't take over, basically.
Yeah, I've got this big list of classes that I've booked in for, and only done a handful. My preferred way is generally winging it. I'll often see like a video or something on Instagram and go, oh, that's really cool. I want to try that, and go, yeah, I can work out how to do that. Maybe, sort of. Sometimes it works brilliantly, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm a big fan of the experimentation school of learning.
Yeah, that's an interesting way. And I noticed you were doing that this year with a few. You would take a YouTube tutorial, like a YouTube video, and then you put it into your own spin on your iPad with your pencil. And some of the work that you were creating was like, wow, that is awesome. And it really blew me away, because I've actually have taken a few classes with that teacher, and I admire her work. I think her work is absolutely beautiful, but I cannot for the life of me get my work to look anything like, I don't want it to look the same. I want the rawness that she produces in my own work, but to actually do that when I'm following the way she does her art, I can't get it to work for me. So I've learned that I watch the videos, I pick up hints and tricks, then I go and I actually put it into my own spin and I do my own style, because it's the only way I get that raw feeling in my own. But yeah, watching you doing that same just by watching her, it was interesting, just the way that we take, I think our minds, the way they work differently.
That was really interesting. So at that point, all my art journaling stuff was still packed away. And so I watched the art journaling video, but yeah, tried to recreate it on my iPad in Procreate, which was good in two ways. In that, one, it pushed my art journaling skills, but it also really pushed me in my Procreate skills, because I had to work out how to alter the brushes and how to layer the different brushes to replicate the effects that physical supplies would give. And so that was actually a really fun experiment. I don't know if I have shared it on my blog, but I know I've definitely shared it on my Instagram, so I can link that in my show notes, and that will include the link to the original video. When I was really getting into Procreate, you were kind of following along in all my adventures, and then somebody got an iPad and an Apple Pencil for their birthday this year. We're quite good at that, aren't we? I'm trying this. Come join me. Or on the reverse. Oh, that is really cool. I'm coming to join you. Tell me all about it.
It was, and I'm still trying to find my feet with the Procreate. Actually, I've got the calendars coming up, so I should probably try and play around and see if I can use it for that. That might be a good learning curve for me.
We did touch a little bit last week on how part of our creative partnership is that it has helped push us to try new things. And I think there's definitely a lot of that in, if one of us falls down the rabbit hole of something new, chances are the other one of us is 3 seconds behind.
Generally speaking, but there is some things that I say, oh, we should do this, and then we don't, or I follow through with it, and you tend to like. I've been fascinated with faces, and I was looking at an old journal. This is embarrassing. I think I started drawing back in 2011, 2012, and my first faces were shocking. They were scary, very, very scary. And it took me years to actually hone some type of skill now. And I'm still not a realistic like painter or drawer of faces, but my faces have improved so much. And to look back over the course of the years, and I remember saying to you once, oh, you should draw a face. And I think you did with charcoal once before, and you showed us the other day. And I was looking at it just going, wow. I don't know why I followed, like I continued on with faces, because you, in that one face, you just captured like absolute beauty. And I'm like, why didn't you do more faces? Because I'm sure I've said to you along the years, hey, come join me, do faces with me. But it's good because we do ebb and flow, don't we?
We do. And every time you would say, come do faces, I'm like, I can't draw. Don't be stupid. And we did touch on that a little bit last week, that encouragement that, because learning new skills is hard. And I know for me personally, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I'm really self-critical. And so if it doesn't work straight up, I'm really good at going, nah, I'm out. And I think when it comes to learning new skills, it is really important to have somebody, in this case you, who is there to say, no, keep going, you can do this, because anything new takes time. and practice. And yeah, sometimes we just need that encouragement to keep going.
And sometimes it's the imperfect stuff that is the epitome of creative life, for me anyway. And I find with myself, if I step back in every area of my creative, I step away from that. Is it perfect or not? And when I come back to it with fresh eyes, it's generally acceptable. Not perfect, but I don't ever strive for perfection. So that's a big difference between you and myself, is the perfection. We'll get that out of you. I'll get it out of you eventually. I have faith.
Maybe. So what's something new we should try this weekend? Is there something that's on our list that we haven't picked up yet?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Maybe we should revisit the 26 materials for the weekend. Pick 2 that we haven't done, that we might have supplies for. Let's face it, I think we've got supplies for most things in there, and give it a whirl. We might even do a blog post next week about it to show the listeners what we produced.
I do love a good remix. So we have a challenge for ourselves, and we would love to know who else is out there crafting and trying new things this weekend. We'd love it if you jumped over to our Instagram. Tell us, what are you making? What are you learning? You can find us on Instagram at Ministry of Crafty Shenanigans, and you can find all the links and show notes from today's episode at our website at ministryofcraftyshenanigans.com.
So that is all done. My back is killing me after leaning over like that for so long. So now I just need to snip off the tensioning thread, and I'm just about ready to start retensioning it. I think I've decided that I'm going to rethread the 2 ends, so 7 threads on each end are threaded on shafts 3 and 4, which was supposed to be an even weave kind of selvage, but that didn't work with the pickup pattern that I'm using, unfortunately. So I think I'm just going to have to rethread those in pattern, and then once I've done that, so that will be this knot here and then that one up the end. So it's not too bad, it's just the end group. So there's 18 threads in each group, so 17 of them are in tabby on each end. So I'll just go through, work out what threads I need to undo, and then it's going to be quite fiddly to unpick those and rethread it, but I think it'll be worth it just because like that was clearly not working as a selvage. So I'll go through, get some more of this, tie it all back onto this leash stick, and then instead of starting it so soon after the knots, I'm actually going to wind it all onto the knots are down here under the beam, which should hopefully help with the tension as well. Then I'll be right to get started again. It's a little bit frustrating undoing all my work like this and starting from scratch, but I do also know that in the end it's going to mean that I'm going to be happier with the project, and I'm also more likely to use the project and make it worth all this effort. It's a bit silly to have gone to all the effort to thread up the loom and try and push through on something that I'm not happy with. So that's the error there that I was getting rid of. Obviously I haven't hem stitched or anything. I mean, it feels quite nice. It's quite a nice feeling fabric. There's loose threads. There's a big long loose thread here that wasn't working. So I think I've definitely made the right choice. I'm very excited though, having seen this now, to get stuck in and get it done, because that fabric's feeling really nice. It's very fine, even with the tight set, it's still quite an open weave. So you can kind of see through there. That's done. Such a good job. Disappointing, but I think I'm going to be much happier with the result. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast, and I will be back tomorrow with another video as we close in on the end of VEDA.